to welcome everyone here tonight to the Acushnet Candidates Night, hosted by the Acushnet Lions. My name is Ray St. Pierre, and I'm a member of the Acushnet Lions. Just a brief statement to let you guys know what we are. The Acushnet Lions Club was organized in 1957 with 30 members. The first aim of our 10 years was community service, mostly on the local level, with monies raised going to glasses, crutches, and food baskets, the basic needs. Then we expanded to playground equipment as well as other community needs. As the club grew, it became successful in fundraising. It was able to give the greater community through Lions Club International. In the mid-'80s, the club started to make regular donations to Mass Lions Eye Research. And to date, the Acushnet Lions has given over $700,000 for eye research alone. We currently have 56 members and continue to support our community in many ways. Our current fundraisers include annual food and drink sales stand at the Apple Peach Festival, golf tournaments, clam bake, duck race, as well as many more events throughout the year. Our most recent projects include handicap ramps, the shuffleboard, which is outside of this lovely building, the Veterans Memorial at Pope Park, and other Pope Park buildings. And we also sponsor many youth team sports and give out many scholarships. We're happy to be serving the community this evening by hosting this Candidates Night. The continued support of our great community allows us to keep serving. Whenever you see a Lions-sponsored event, know that 100% of that proceeds go to charity. The cost of running day-to-day operations is absorbed slowly by our members through dues and collections. Again, we welcome all of you, and we thank you for being here to support the town of Acushnet and the candidates willing to serve the people of this town. I'd like to give out a few special thank yous tonight for people that really helped out from the town. I'd like to thank Pamela Bonte from the town clerk's office, who provided the ballot information and contacted the cable. Heather True, Director of the Council on Aging, for booking us here and setting up this venue. Jerry Bergeron for all the signs posted, so notifying our residents here tonight about this event. And our moderator, Phil Paligotis, who is serving as our moderator tonight. I would like to welcome and introduce the candidates who will be participating tonight. Candidates for Selectmen, Mr. David DeRoches, if you'd stand. Mr. Robert Hinckley, Selectman. Candidates for Board of Health, Thomas Fortin. And Douglas Thomas. And our school candidates, school committee, Jennifer Downing and Sarah Gold. The format tonight will be as follows. Candidates will be allowed 3-minute introduction, followed by written questions from the audience. So if you have any questions for them, we want you to write them down and get them to one of us lines, and we will give them to the moderator to read out to each candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to, and potentially 2 30-second rebuttals. After the questions are answered from the audience, candidates will be allowed to ask questions of each other in the same format. Candidates will be then given 3 minutes for any closing comments. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, Phil Paligotis. Phil's voice. has been coming out of radio for the last 55 years. He is known as the morning mayor on WBSM. Please give us a warm welcome for Bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ray, thank you.
You're welcome.
This man knows how to get things organized, truly. Thank you. I must have emailed him 100 times asking him to clarify this, do that. You know, when we owned the Shamet Diner, both Celeste and I, well, I was a lot younger, Celeste was a lot younger. Now, years, decades later, I look out and I see faces and I remember you. It's just the names are a little bit foggy, but many of you I remember from the diner. And let me just say thank you for listening in every morning, because it's very important that we keep a community going. I am prejudiced. I think Acushnet has got it together, and I mean that. Congratulations for the energy that you put into keeping your town functioning. It's not easy. There's a Greek word called economia. It's translated as economy. And we think of the word economy as something that, well, it must have to do with cheap or rich, or actually economy means to have a balance in the household. When we understand that concept of balance in the household, how to make sure that we get everything somehow paid, that is the secret to having a good, healthy community. I see a lot of balance here, and tonight I'm sure we're going to hear from the candidates who have a lot to say. And as we welcome the candidates, just know that from my heart, you are all embraced in my gratitude, because unfortunately, a lot of people are just letting others do it. And so to you who have the energy and are here, thank you on behalf of people who appreciate you. So Ray, I'm going to start off here. Where would you like to begin? Ray's going to be my co-host, by the way.
We have the two school committee candidates ready to speak.
Excellent. So do we have any order we go by? All right, think of a number from 1 to 10.
1 to 10, 8, 6.
Closer, I have 5. Jennifer, by all means.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer Downing. I've been serving on the school committee since 2017. I have 2 children. I have a son who has gone through the district and is now a freshman at Fairhaven High School. He's 14. And I have an 11-year-old daughter who's in 6th grade at the Ford Middle School. So I began serving in 2017 because I wanted to be a part of something that was really important to my family and to my children, and where they spend most of their hours during the week at school. And it was really important to me to be a part of that community. I have been working in the nonprofit sector for over 20 years. Currently, I'm the executive director of a new nonprofit called the New Bedford Ocean Cluster, which is working towards the economic development of marine industries. Those industries are renewable, offshore renewable energy, commercial fishing and processing, aquaculture, and innovation technology. Prior to my time at the New Bedford Ocean Cluster, I served for 6 years as the executive director of Leadership South Coast, which is a community leadership program that services the region. And then prior to that, I served for over a decade as a program officer for a private foundation. So I was in the philanthropy business. So civic engagement has always been a part of my life, both professionally but also personally. And so it's important to me to serve my community. And so in addition to serving on the school committee, I've served on numerous nonprofit boards and committees. It's a part of who I am to be a part of service. In terms of my work with the school committee, I'm a huge advocate for the schools. I like to say that I advocate for a responsible budget, for policies, and a culture that is always in the best interest of our students, our teachers, and our administrators, as well as the town. I do my best on the committee to not only hold our superintendent accountable, but also to be her partner and to support the district in that way. So I do believe that our schools, should I stop?
Got a couple more seconds.
Okay, I'll just finally say that I do believe our schools are a priority for our town. I think our children deserve green-rated, top-rated curriculum. I believe they deserve the latest technology and enrichment programs so that they can have the best academic success. So thank you very much.
Jennifer Downing, ladies and gentlemen, running unopposed. Thank you. Sarah Gomes, running unopposed. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Sarah Gomes. I'm just going to give background about myself. Born and raised in New Bedford. When I got married, my husband and I decided that we were going to raise a family, so we had to move to Acushnet because that was the place to be. So I've been an Acushnet resident for 18 years. And when we had children, my daughter was going into the Acushnet Elementary School, so I am a joiner and I need to know everything in detail. So I decided to become a substitute teacher, just to see what the school was about. So for a year, I not only originated loans, because I am a mortgage banker by trade for over 20 years, I did some substitute teaching to see what was going on in the school system, and I learned a lot by being a sub. And then I was told to get more knowledge to join the PTO. So I joined the Acushnet PTO, and 4 months later, I was Acushnet PTO president. I was president for 3 years there, which has actually built the foundation of what the Acushnet PTO is on now, which is pretty much a small business running very smoothly. And then after that, I wanted to make some big changes. I saw change was needed in our school system. So I was told either to become a superintendent of the school or run for school committee. So I decided to run for school committee. And I got on, I back 7 years ago, beat the incumbent person and immediately became vice chair, actually chair. And we went for a school committee, a superintendent search to look for a new superintendent. So from being a resident of 18 years, we now have a new superintendent, which I am very proud of. I think she is a great leader, and I'm proud to have had her elected by the school committee to have her be there for, at least another 4 years or so. But more about myself, I'm also a member of the budget subcommittee. So budgeting is very important to me to make sure that we balance both for the community and for the students. And I think we're doing very well with that at this time. And then in addition to that, I'm also on the policy committee because writing policies for our district is also very important. And I believe we've updated all our policies in the past 9 years, which is a win for all of us, especially the students and the staff in the district. And other than that, like I said, I'm a mortgage banker by trade. I work right in Fairhaven. My daughter is a sophomore in Fairhaven High School, and my son is now a 5th grader at Ford Middle School. So I have been part of the school committee in the school district for 12 years now. So that is my spiel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to get to know the people who lead our community. Before we go any further, my in-laws were lovers of the Lions Club. The Barretts, Ed and Yvonne Barrett, long time members and devotees to one of the world's greatest organizations. I know all about what you do, and all I can say is more Godspeed behind you. We need to go forward. Don't stop. And tonight I am here in their honor. Let's move now to the candidates for the Board of Health.
Just wanted to make sure that if there was any questions for these candidates, we'd like to write them down, so if you have any questions for any other candidates, make sure you grab a pen and paper on the table and help yourself to.
Does anyone have a question that you'd like to ask?
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Okey-dokey. We're moving on now to the candidates for the Board of Health. And starting is Thomas Fortin, the incumbent, will give us his opening statement.
Both gentlemen, come on up.
We're going to have both.
Yeah, they're both there.
Douglas Thomas. Douglas is running for the position, and Thomas is the incumbent, as I said. Nice to see both of you gentlemen here. Do you want to use this? Is this easier for you? That's fine? Okay, fine. I'm here to make sure you're relaxed.
We're relaxed. We're all relaxed now.
You can pull the mic
Making
over
sure
to
the street
you
ahead.
or use the podium.
Trying to fit, I'll fit the 36 years in. It's gonna be tough in 3 minutes. But good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Thomas Fortin. I'd like to thank the Lions Club. I'd like to thank the Lions Club.
Bring it to you.
Okay, that's better. How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. I'll start over again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Thomas Fortin. I'd like to thank the Lions Club for inviting me this evening, and thank Phil for hosting. I talked to you a few times on the radio when it's snowing out.
Oh, that's you, okay.
I've been a member of the Board of Health for 36 years. I originally became interested in public health in the early 80s. Actually, I think Reagan was president. Wait, I'm going way back. Joining the Southeastern Health Project, we lobbied at the state and federal levels to get the Acushnet River on the Superfund bill for cleanup, and we were successful. Decided to run for this position to stop the B&F landfill that was dumping 600 tons of trash a day. And we were very successful in doing so, and it was a long, long process. I was instrumental in creating a recycling program in town, one of the first in the state. We're also the first community to prohibit smoking in restaurants, and I believe Pop Casey's was one of the first in the state. When I started in my department, our budget was about $375,000. So along with fellow board members, we were able to join with the Fayetteville Nurse Association, allowing us to cut the budget probably in half at that time, and we're currently at $200,000, so we're doing pretty good. I was involved in creating a part-time health agent position and finally becoming a full-time position. I've always been fair in making decisions regarding health violations, and for now I'll move forward to what's going on in the community and at this time. Of course, we all know COVID was a big issue. It was a very stressful time for the department in making very difficult decisions. So I also realized that PJ Keating is a big issue in the community. So along with the Board of Selectmen, Soil Board, Conservation, Health Agents, the Town Council, and we have all worked to get PJ Keating in compliance through our court system. It's been difficult, and we are continuing to do so. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening and look forward to serving the community, and would appreciate your vote on May 14th.
Thomas Fortin, thank you so much. Douglas Thomas, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Thomas. I would first like to thank the Lions Club for sponsoring this event and all the hard work that you do day in and day out for this community. I want to also thank my fellow residents of Acushnet for taking the time out to attend this candidates night. I care deeply about this town of Acushnet. I have lived here since 2010. Because of the small-town character and the great property values that Acushnet has, it is a great place to live. I know I can help keep it that way. I am a candidate for the Board of Health and hope to earn your support on Election Day. I have been interested in giving back to the town and decided to make a run for the seat, knowing that I am dedicated to the time needed to make the difference on how the Board of Health services this town and the town's residents, especially our seniors who rely on services like Council on Aging, Meals on Wheels. I feel that the Board of Health has missed the boat on providing information and services related to COVID-19 for our residents of Acushnet. If I'm elected, I will work with my fellow board members to get the Board of Health back on track and provide health services that services the townspeople, not just the contractors and septic systems. The fire chief, our fire chief, Kevin Gallagher, filled the void to the failure of the Board of Health of COVID-19. At the Counseling on Aging for our residents, the Board of Health has a budget of over $187,000 a year. In the last 3 years, the budget went up $44,000. The Board of Health has 3 elected members. One member, Mr. Medeiros, has served over 30 years. The second member, Mr. Fortin, advertises that he has served for 36 plus years. And the third member, Mr. Davinian, has served for at least 14 years. To the best of my knowledge, all 3 members have never had an opponent. This is time for change. New focus, new energy, and the desire for the Board of Health. The Board of Health needs new blood. I'm ready to donate. I currently work in law enforcement. I have a degree in culinary arts. I am trained in food service safety. I am very familiar with the state health regulations. The town faces financial challenges in the near future, and rather than improve efficiencies and and customer service and reduce the burden on taxpayers,
Doug, time, whenever you...
the Board of Health budget climbs higher and higher year after year. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Douglas Thomas. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask of the candidates? I do. Board of Health. This is for both, obviously. All right, why don't we start as we did, Thomas? If P.J. Keating is so detrimental to the health and safety of the neighbors, why did a member of the health board feel it was appropriate to purchase and live in a home that abuts the quarry?
Why would they buy a house? I don't know, because maybe they got it for a good deal. Who knows? I have no idea why somebody would buy a house near a quarry. If they did, that was their choice. They probably got a good deal. I don't know. I have one statement to make regarding what Mr. Thomas said with our budget. I just need
Do we
to
go
clarify.
into rebuttals right now, or do we give them time after? This is the question we want to get answered first.
Well,
And then we'll
my
go back.
answer.
If you have anything, Tom?
Yep, that's my answer.
Can I chime in on the question?
I'm going to ask the question to you as well.
Absolutely.
Your answer is all finished? Yes. Okay. If PJ Keating is so detrimental to the health and safety of the neighbors, why did a member of the Board of Health feel it was appropriate to purchase and live in a home that abuts the quarry?
So my response to that, as I've said, I've only been here for a short few years. My wife has been here for 30-plus years. I am not an abutter. I do suffer the consequences from this quarry. As the abutters, feel those consequences far more than I do, or we do. We know that in the last few years, they've been on the uptick of production, blasting. We do feel that down here on South Main Street. And, you know, we're looking for this company to be, as we've asked, as a community, to be good neighbors and to work with board members and be in compliance and run as a normal functioning operation should. And this is not happening. And this is where we're at today with PJ Keating. I know there's a lot of false information, allegations regarding PJ Keating, and I am in it for the fight to see that PJ Keating is in compliance. I do not want to see them close. I do not want to see any business close in Acushnet, but they need to be in compliance. Thank you.
Okay. Ray, thank you. Ray will give each candidate time to go back and forth, or do we have more questions?
We have more questions.
Okay. We'll hold the rebuttals until after the questions.
Is there a rebuttal to anything that was said during that question?
Okay. Would you like to rebut anything that was said in those opening? Okay. All right. All right. We'll start now, Doug, with you. What are your occupations, and how would your job experiences help you in your potential Board of Health position?
I am 57 years old. I have 37 years approximately in the food service industry business, supermarket retail business. Work very closely with health inspectors throughout many communities with inspections, very familiar with standards, codes. One of my jobs on my resume was a head cook for Otis Air Force Base in the military.
And also, Tom, to you, what are your occupations, and how would your job experiences help you in your potential Board of Health position if you're the contractor?
I'm a general contractor in the town, and I just look back at the 36 years that I put into this community, and I've done all of the inspections. When I first started, there was no health agent. We did all of the inspections ourselves. We did everything as board members. And I think with my 36 years of experience, I think we can make the town a better place to live. I mean, we've done it. I've been there.
All set?
Great.
All right. Tom, what changes are you going to make?
What changes am I going to make? I think our major thought and things that are going on right now, of course, as I said in my opening statement, that, yeah, PJ Keating's a big issue. And I really, right now, we're in a civil lawsuit against everybody that's involved. The Board of Selectmen, Board of Health. I have to be careful on how I answer those questions. But as Doug said, I definitely want to see them come in compliance. I don't want to see a business close. That's not our job. Our job has always been to work with the people in the community, to work with the businesses. I've always been fair, like I said, and we've always worked problems out. And that's what I do, and that's what I've done for the years that I've been on this board.
And I'm going to ask you the same question, Doug. What changes are you going to make?
I, at this time, am not planning on making any sweeping changes. I am hoping to bring better service to the residents of Acushnet, stable office hours for residents, greater transparency at the Board of Health meetings, but most of all, be a good listener.
Very good, thank you. Is the Board of Health going to have flu shots available to residents? And we'll start, Doug, with you.
That I officially cannot answer. I believe that falls under the staff that they've hired for this nursing program that us taxpayers are paying for. I would be on board with that and agree with that if that ever came to the table. I think that should be part of that program, that should be included in that fee, as well as COVID shots, COVID booster shots. Anything that we can do for the community through this nursing health program that we're paying for a service.
Tom, is the Board of Health going to have flu shots available to residents?
I think that will happen soon. We did join up with New Bedford. We started a new coalition with them, and we're working on getting extra help to go along with the Nurse Association. So, yeah, that's definitely going to happen in the near future.
As we continue on with these questions, I just want to also pay a quick thank you to Mike Chopper, who actually made me aware of all of this. So, Mike, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. All righty, we started with you, Doug, last time. So, Tom, why do we need a full-time health agent during COVID? We had no information about the pandemic. Is the health agent supposed to inspect restaurants in town?
The health agent does inspect restaurants in town. And I believe our health agent was on the ball as far as all of that information that they asked. I don't see where he wasn't.
Doug, let me repeat this. Why do we need a full-time health agent? During COVID, we had no information about the pandemic. Is the health agent supposed to inspect restaurants in town?
The health inspector is not only a restaurateur inspector, there's many aspects that go along with that as far as inspections. Bed and breakfasts, a la cartes, these mobile units that sell hot dogs, for instance, along with this, you know, there's a lot of hours involved here. And as far as the COVID, the health department dropped the ball in my eyes, and the people that I've spoken to throughout the community while I was in the community outdoor knocking. Thanks to our fire chief, Kevin Gallagher, as we all know. I personally visited those sites on many occasions. Mr. Gallagher was present at COVID testing, at COVID sites. Mr. Gallagher informed this community of updates. Every Friday, we received those calls. If it wasn't for Mr. Gallagher taking charge and informing citizens of what was going on, we would have been completely left in the dark with the Board of Health. And I feel that that's a major boo-boo in my book. That is the Board of Health at its finest.
Did I just answer that?
Yes, you can. They can get recorded.
Just, you know, the Board of Health and our health agent, along with Mr. Gallagher, did all that. And Mr. Gallagher was the one who would call and do the reverse 911, and that was his job. But he was also in contact with Board of Health at all times, and that was shared with Mr. Correa and with myself and the other board members.
I'm gonna rebuttal.
Okay.
I feel as a health agent, a health inspector, the person that we rely on that's in charge for the well-being of this community should have made himself present, should have made some of them phone calls. He totally relied on Chief Gallagher, the EMS, fire department team. In this pandemic, and I'm gonna say it again, in my eyes, I think the Board of Health failed Acushnet on this pandemic. And that,
Second rebuttal?
I'll disagree with that. Board of Health was on the ball. We were in touch with Mr. Gallagher at all times, and he wanted to be the spokesman. Mr. Gallagher is no longer fire chief of this town. So, he's gone now, unfortunately, and he was a great speaker, and that's why we allowed him to do the 911 reverse calls.
rebuttal, Chief Gallagher is in charge until approximately July, I believe. Okay, so he is in charge, and he will take care of this community until the last day he is in his office to do good for this community. He cares about this community.
Along with the Board of Health.
All set?
All set?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We have this. Why wasn't the health agent more upfront and active with the pandemic? And Doug?
I think it's the same question. I think it's a repetitive question. I've stated the known facts. It's out there. I have nothing further to add on that for comment.
Why wasn't the health agent more upfront and active with the pandemic?
He was upfront and active with our board, and he was upfront and active with Mr. Gallagher.
Okay.
That's it on that? Now, these are for, I believe, the select board, the selectmen. Yeah, I believe all of these are for the next candidates.
Could I just
Yes.
rebut on one thing, and it's regards to the budget of the Board of Health, which Mr. Thomas says that we're at $187,000.
In the closing statements, you'll have an opportunity, because that was an opening, in your closing statement, if you want to include that. That'd be appropriate time.
You want to just take 10, 15 seconds and equal it up, or are you all set?
It's the only
All right.
rebuttal that I have.
Okay. So during your closing statements, you can bring all of this out.
Are there any more questions out there?
Can we ask a question verbally?
No,
Gary
no.
Roberts, make a way.
Yeah, no, the papers, it depends on,
Yeah, but my
Okay.
concern with that, are you screening them, or are you gonna?
No,
read
no,
them
no, I'm
verbatim?
handling them as we go
So
along.
if I write the question,
Yes,
you're
you'll
gonna
get
read
it.
it verbatim the way I
yes,
write?
yes.
As long as it's not a personal question, Mr. Rockcliffe.
No,
Yes,
That's
yes.
the only reason we're screening, to make sure they're not
Yes.
personal and they have to
you
do
guys really wanna
politics.
wait for me to ask questions? It's really a simple question.
We'll give you 30
Really?
seconds. 30 seconds.
There you go. Jeez.
Nothing against you, we're just trying to keep it fair for everybody.
In the meanwhile, should we continue on here?
If anybody wants any water or anything, there is a bucket under
We're not
under the
done with
table.
questions. If anybody would like to join Mr. Rockcliffe, we're open to questions.
Is this question for the Board of Health?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, so we'll just wait until,
I'd rather have just have made a statement, but I'll ask the question. My spelling sucks too, so,
I got a feeling. I got a gut feeling.
Here's the question, and Tom, will start with you. Don't you think EMS had a better means and method for dispersing the test
Of COVID, sorry.
of COVID?
Well, I thought they did a great job. I mean, I don't see, can you repeat that again?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm not getting the whole question here.
Don't you think EMS had a better means and method for dispersing the test?
Then the
You
Board of
think-
Health would have. How's that?
I think the EMS did a fine job in handling all of that, and all of the testing. I thought that they did a fine job handling that. I think it could have been done any better. Could the Board of Health have done that? I mean, we did, together with them. We worked together with them to get that done. It was a very difficult situation, and there was a lot of stressful times that, going through COVID. And everybody knows that, the state knows that. They had no answers. We didn't have the answers. We'd wait every day. And I went through this for, a whole year. We met with everybody, and we'd wait for the state to get back to us daily on how we're gonna disperse testing, how we're gonna, have people tested. That wasn't an easy task. And it wasn't easy for the state, it wasn't easy for the government. So anybody that can criticize what we did is making a mistake, because there should be no criticism. I thought it was handled very well.
Doug, don't you think EMS had a better means and method for dispersing the test?
Again, my answer to this, again, thanks to Chief Gallagher, EMS, Fire Department, all people involved on these sites. Again, I think we're paying a contractor, the nurse program that we have in Acushnet. They should have been part of this program. We're paying for a service. Where is their service? Where's the accountability? They should have been a part of this from the get-go when it was spearheaded. I understand the rebuttal with the pandemic. I understand how tough this was on everybody. I just think if the resources are there for us to use, and we're paying for a resource, we should have used the resource to help us through the pandemic.
The Nurses Association, the Fairhaven Nurses Association didn't have enough people to handle all of that. That's why we went with EMS, and that was a direction by the state, not just by the Board of Health. So we have to follow these rules, and that was very difficult. And I stated it in my address, that we did cover COVID-19, and I thought we did a great job. And it was the only way we could do it.
So a rebuttal on this? So by this, I'm gonna call it service that was provided from EMS, the fire chief, these are services that are taken directly away from the town because they're located on sites for COVID. Granted, I get it, there's an emergency, someone needs an ambulance, they may have to leave the site. It's gonna leave the site shorthanded. I just think, in my eyes, we should have looked deeper into this and used what we could for resources rather than tying up our local police and fire chief and EMS people.
That was a recommendation by the state. And like I said, every day, we were waiting for calls by the state on which direction to take. And those were the directions that were given to us. You couldn't have the Nurse Association, there was just not enough people to handle testing. That would have been impossible. It was the only one way to do it, and EMS jumped on the bandwagon, and they did a great job. But along with the Board of Health and everybody else making those decisions, and the state making those decisions, we followed the rules, and we followed them well. And I'm proud of what our Board of Health did, and we got it done.
Time. Final rebuttal.
I have about a minute.
I have just one final rebuttal, and it's regarding,
Let Doug rebut.
I have nothing more to add on this. I couldn't praise Chief Gallagher and the EMS Fire Department for what they did for this community. Without them, I don't think we would be in a good position. My final is, again, the health services that this community is paying for, we're not getting our bang for our buck.
So, can I just...
Gentlemen, okay, here's what we're going to do. Yes, but in your closing statement, all right? This will constitute your closing statement in just a moment. I have one more question. This one we already asked. We asked that question once before. All righty. Everybody, thank you, by the way, to both of you. You are now 3 minutes you have for closing statements. And we'll begin the way we did. You're the incumbent, Thomas Fortin, so you begin your closing statement for 3 minutes, please.
I just want to go back to where we discussed the Nurse Association and what we pay for the Nurse Association. I want to go back when we developed the Nurse Association, when we joined with them. Our budget, when I first started on this committee, on the Board of Health, we were at pushing almost $400,000 a year. So Mr. Thomas says that we're charging 180 some odd thousand dollars a year. It's almost $200,000 a year. But in the past 25 years, going together with the Fairhaven Nurse Association, we've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars for this community. And that was one of the best moves that this board ever made. So I just want to make that my statement that we are still continuing to save money for this community. Again, for my closing statement, I'd like to thank everybody again this evening, and I'd like to thank the Lions Club for putting this on, and Phil for doing a great job. And I hope to see everybody get out and vote, and I appreciate your vote on May 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Your closing statement?
Tom, thank you. In closing, I would again like to thank the Lions Club for sponsoring this event this evening. I want to also thank my fellow residents of Acushnet for taking the time out to attend tonight's candidate night. Of course, our moderator for a great job. I really do deeply care about this town of Acushnet. I love this town, and I want to help maintain a healthy and safe place for all of us here in Acushnet. Acushnet is a great place to live, and I know that if I'm elected to the Board of Health, I will work like hell and fight to help keep it that way. I hope that I have earned your support tonight. I really do want to help revive the Board of Health. There is a serious lack of interest in leadership by elect board members that have held their position for decades. Decades of collecting a monthly check for missing meetings, decades of not changing anything to bring efficiency and budget savings for the already burdened taxpayers of this community. I can promise you that if you support me on election day, that I will work with my fellow board members to discuss ways that we can bring the board health into the 21st century and serve our residents better than we have for the last few years. I realize there is no I in team, and it takes a team to make a change that is beneficial to all. I think it's important to say this again. I'm not planning on making any sweeping changes. I'm hoping to bring a better service to the residents, accountability, stability of office hours for residents, greater transparency at the Board of Health meetings, but most of all, be a good listener. I will always be respectful and accept the differences of opinions that may arise in board discussions. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both very, very much. We appreciate it. Continuing on now.
Thank you.
All righty. We are going to welcome the candidates. Ray, you tell me if I'm on the right track here for Selectmen. Righty? Thank you both. Dave DeRoche, the incumbent, come on up. Hello there, David. And Robert Hinckley, the opponent. Hello, Robert. How are you? Doing well. Nice to see you. Thank you here too. We have quite a few questions.
That they do.
Are all the questions passed in? Okay, we still have a couple outstanding. All righty. Well, for the sake of time, let me start. Yes, of course. Absolutely. Why don't we begin by welcoming our two guests here, and we'll first start off with the incumbent, Dave DeRoche. Your opening statement to make to our wonderful people here.
Very good, Phil. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. The Acushnet Lions Club for hosting this event. Phil Paleologos as moderator, and Heather True, Director of the Acushnet Council on Aging, for offering this venue. Over the past few weeks, as I have been campaigning across this fine town, there has been one reoccurring question that I've been asked. Why are you running for re-election? To me, the answer is simple. I'm running because my job isn't finished. My opportunity over the last 3 years to represent this town and its residents has been an honor and a privilege. Challenges face this town, and decisions still need to be made. Sometimes these decisions are contentious, and other times they are not. It kind of goes with the job. I believe fiscal challenges are at the forefront. 2 weeks ago, the Board of Selectmen, with the determined efforts of the Finance Committee and the Town Administrator, put forth a balanced budget for FY23 that is fiscally responsible and provides core services to our residents. I look forward to working with my colleagues to bring additional economic activity to increase our commercial tax base. You must remember, 86% of our tax base comes from the residential sector, a burden which needs to be reduced. I was a proponent of the New England Farms Project, which will add to our commercial tax base, as well as add to jobs in our town. I believe it is imperative that this town attract new business, but to do so, we must start with infrastructure improvements such as water and sewer. The $2 million ARPA fund money the town will be receiving, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure bill and grant money, should be immediately directed at these issues, as well as the reconstruction of Slocum Street and the transfer of South Main Street from the state to the town of Acushnet. We need to write a master plan, one that includes over 55 housing. Also, over the next 3 years, the town will be facing the challenges of rezoning for new housing as train service arrives to New Bedford and Acushnet becomes an MBTA community. I look forward to working with the town planner and the planning board to make these transitions happen. I will continue the town's ongoing negotiations with PJ Keating to achieve compliance with all federal, state, and town of Acushnet bylaws. As it says on their website, CRH has a responsibility to lead the industry in protecting the environment and helping to solve sustainability challenges, such as climate change, air quality, water quality, and land use. When they operate again, I fully expect that. For the seniors, I'm happy to announce that for the first time, the senior work program will be funded, and eligible seniors can work for the town and receive a voucher for up to $1,500 to be applied to their tax bill. I'm proud of the work I've done as SRTA director. With the help of Lynn Barabi and her staff at Presidential Terrace, we were able to expand the on-demand service provided by the SRTA to create Market Basket Mondays and Walmart Wednesdays. And for the handicapped, the service can be used for medical and personal rides. Here at the COA, I was able to secure a retired SRTA 12-passenger van for $1 to help the council with their transportation needs.
Dave.
In conclusion, I'd like to say, as a town, we need to be proactive, not reactive in planning our town's future. Thank you.
Robert, we're going to add on some time. Your
It
opinion.
took me 4 minutes in practice to read that, so. But my closing statement's only a minute long.
Because you gotta put your glasses up there.
I'll save some of my thanks for the end to make up. I just really want to start by introducing myself. My name is Robert Hinckley. Lifelong resident of this town, with a small little hiccup in the middle after I got married. Moved back as soon as I could. This town has always been my town and always will be my town. I just want to start with that. I love this town. I'm not moving. And I appreciate anybody that feels the same way as me, that this is really one of the best towns we have in this community. And I appreciate you all for coming. I want to focus on infrastructure. I think we see a lot of complaints with people complaining constantly about water mains problems, drainage problems. So I think that's very important. I'm very big on schools as well. Without setting our children up for success, it's really difficult to have a successful town, because if our kids aren't successful, what's the point? As it stands right now, I think there needs to be a lot of work done to this town. I think we get by with our board members. I think a lot of people are complacent. They've been on the board for a long time, and they think that it's a cakewalk. And I don't think this should be a cakewalk. I'm also not a politician. I don't ever plan on being a politician. I plan on putting my nose to the grindstone and getting things done, which I'm good at. That's what I do for a living. And, sorry, my daughter was just smiling. It screwed me up a little bit. Acushnet's a rural community, and it needs to stay a rural community. I'm really excited to come home every day and hear crickets, hear birds, and I believe we can expand this town, but not take away from this town. I want to keep it a town. And we got to focus on that when MBTA does move into New Bedford. Being a community town next to something like that, we have to really focus on making sure that New Bedford doesn't come into Acushnet business-wise and highway-wise. I don't want to see, Route 6 inside of Acushnet. I really like no stoplights. I mean, it's nice to be one of, I think, 2 communities in the state that doesn't have a light in town. It's nice. I'm really focused on protecting the 55 and older community. I think that with rising taxes, it's really tough to watch grandparents and parents feel like they're being taxed out of town. So we need to focus on finding a way to house them. Maybe a nice housing initiative, cluster housings would be a good idea. We all have a very unique opportunity to actually voice our opinions for town. Every one of you in this room has the opportunity to get up at a town meeting. You can say what you feel to board members. You can call out hypocrisy if you see it. And you can tell everybody in this town how the money should be spent by voicing your opinions. And that's super important. And I really want to focus on getting more people involved with the community. It's very important that if I'm paying taxes, not just you, no offense, should be deciding how that money's spent. As a community, we have to get together as a whole. I've been to town meetings and watching 75, 85 people determine how the town gets handled. We need to work on that. And communication's a big part of that. You have to let these people know ahead of time. A lot of people don't find out about town meeting until it's too late. I'd like to work on that. This town is not set up for vanity projects. I don't want to leave a legacy in this town. I don't want to be the guy that did this. I want to take care of you guys. Taxpayers are the most important part of this town, because without you, we don't have a town. And it's as simple as that. It's really up to you guys, in theory, to decide who gets the legacy in this town. It's not up to the person looking for the legacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here we go with some questions. Because of the number we have, Of course, we don't want you to skip anything, but please keep in mind some moderation. So we start off with the incumbent. Dave, do you support the removal of forest land and the acquisition of agricultural land for solar farm projects?
Well, as you know, at this upcoming town meeting, we're going to have an article concerning a moratorium on solar farms. I think right now, this town has been inundated with, I believe, 19 projects that have been approved by planning board to move forward as solar farms. I think it was great when the solar farms used fields and didn't disturb areas of forestry, but now we're being asked to clear cut 40, 50 acres of land, and I don't know if that's going to be beneficial to the town in the long run. Some people say that, well, it could be developed into house lots, so solar farms are a better option. Maybe, I don't know. That's up to an argument or a debate, but so I do believe at the beginning it started out fine. We put solar farms in sand pits, we put them in fields, but now as it progresses, there is some concern, which is being shown, like I said, by the article that's going to be put forth at town meeting. And it'll be good to see a moratorium on them for the time being and be able to catch up and see how we want to steer the course in the future.
Robert, do you support the removal of forest land and the acquisition of agricultural land for solar farm projects?
No, I think 19 is plenty. I think we have 4 active right now. I grew up in the woods. I still hang out in the woods with my kids, and I think it's a big part of this town is seeing the woods. Most of these companies are from around here. They're moving in, buying up chunks of land, clear cutting forests, and then just collecting the energy. And we do get tax revenue from it, but I'd much rather look at trees, hear birds chirping, and be able to take a walk with my daughter than look at a pile of glass that doesn't actually benefit me other than tax revenue. And that's as simple as it is.
Thank you both very much. To both candidates, how do you feel about the idea of the town taking over South Main Street from the estate? And how do you propose we pay for the upkeep of this street if the town does take it over? And we started with you, so Robert, why don't we start with you?
I don't think it's a good idea, to put it bluntly. The town has trouble keeping up with plowing, sanding, salting, paving, everything you can imagine that a town needs to keep up with. The town doesn't keep up with it right now. They're trying, but we run close to a zero-sum balance in town. There's not a lot of money to throw around. I don't think we could feasibly pay for South Main Street and pay for infrastructure and maintain it without going bankrupt. And I think it's a good possibility for the future, but I'm talking like a 20-year plan maybe. Right now, I think the worst thing we could do, and I don't mean worst thing, but a poor idea would be to take over South Main Street from the state.
Well, Robert, I'm on the other side of the coin on this one. The benefits that I see, well, first of all, it will take 5 to 7 years if this happens. So it's not an immediate action to be taken by the town of Acushnet. Secondly, it's been proposed that the state can provide, and I say can because it hasn't been decided yet. We've only just touched the surface of this issue, but can include some infrastructure when they rebuild South Main Street from Century House to Fairhaven. I think the benefits of having a gateway into the Acushnet that the town can control is important. Have an aesthetic sense to the project with sidewalks and lighting all the way from Town Hall to Fairhaven. And it also ties in with the plan that I'm hoping to work with my selectmen with about making Slocum Street improved, because that's going to be a direct route to the train station once the train comes to New Bedford. And as far as how we're gonna afford it, well, you know, we're talking, I don't know, 3 miles of road, possibly. You know, the state's gonna fix it all up for us, so even if we take it over in 5 years, I don't foresee any issues for at least another 5 to 7 years. Now, you're gonna have, if the quarry opens up again, you're gonna have trucks rolling on it. So there is an option that could be put on the table to charge a tipping fee to the trucks, so the town can maintain the road, which I think is fair, because you see what condition it's in now that the state has to deal with. You know, if the town's gonna deal with it, then, you know, the finances should come from the people who are using it, that, you know, use it for their business. So, that's my answer to that question.
You have a rebuttal?
I really think as a select board, soil board, all the boards all together, the planning board, all you have to do is put some pressure on the state to fix the road. It's a state-owned road. They're supposed to maintain it. I understand where you're coming from, and I think, like I said, maybe 20 years would be a good thing. I think we should really see how the MBTA plays out. I do agree with you that Slocum Street needs to get handled, because I drove down it today and it was aggressively bumpy. But that's something that we can handle right now. we can do Slocum Street. Put pressure on the state to fix Main Street, and you can make it just as nice and not have to worry about the maintenance.
Would you like to reply?
The state is interested in getting rid of it.
Into the microphone.
Oh, okay. The state is interested in getting rid of the street, okay, and giving it to us. That's why they're proposing to do the infrastructure improvements and pave it and put sidewalks in and put street lighting, because they want to get rid of it. Yeah, that's a fact. And, you know, it's still going to be used, it's going to be a major road in town. So I haven't much more to say about it.
Does Robert get one more?
Yes.
If the state can fund the entire project, I'm in.
Okay. To both of you, and we'll start with you, right, Robert, this time? Oh, you, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm easy
As you were.
confused. All right, we'll start with you, Robert. What would your plan be if LNG proposed to expand the facility on Peckham Road? Will it be beneficial to the taxpayers of Acushnet?
Tax-wise, it was beneficial years ago when they proposed it. Environmentally wise, it wasn't beneficial. I'm not a big fan of taking out wetlands and replacing them with wetlands, if that makes any sense to anybody. I grew up in those woods. I was born on Peckham Road. I got kicked out of the LNG plant because I accidentally landed there one time, didn't know where I was. There's a lot of wetland back there that I don't think people realize how far it goes back. You can walk all the way to Nestles Lane back there. And I think the size of those tanks now is pretty significant. The expansion they proposed last time would have actually put them very close to my parents' backyard. And if you look at feasibility studies and you look at LNG expansion, home values decrease pretty decently. And I don't think a lot of the people that own in that neck of the woods would appreciate it. But once again, it's an idea that you'd have to run by the taxpayers. It'd be a town meeting vote. And I'm sure they would do an exploratory like they did last time. And just like last time, everybody got up, everybody stood up and voted and made the decision. And once the select board at the time listened to the townspeople, they made the decision not to do it. I'd probably do the same thing.
Let me repeat the question, Dave. What would your plan be if LNG proposed to expand the facility on Peckham Road? Will it be beneficial to the taxpayers of Acushnet?
It could be. I mean, this question is kind of vague because there's been no discussion of how big the project would be, what impact it would have on the environment. You know, those would have to be all things considered. I mean, the fact is that there are 2 LNG tanks there that have been there since I was a kid, back in the 1900s. So, you know, the argument of house values will decline, well, we've seen just the opposite of that. My father built the houses across the street from the gas tanks, and those houses are selling price, 400,000, low fours, and the tanks exist there today. So that argument, you know, it's a little thin, in my view. But, you know, to ask this question, it's a little too vague to really come down and give you a true answer about it. As Robert says, it would have to go to town meeting, which I agree, and it would come down to the taxpayers to decide, to be the ultimate decision makers in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. 30 seconds for reply.
When I brought up property values, I was referencing the fact that we've been through this before. That was right when I moved back to town, and that's when I decided to get fairly involved in paying attention to how the town operates. And I went to every single one of those meetings and listened to every single engineer and read extensive amounts of information. And you can look at them now, they're already purchasing all the homes in front, and they're moving, and they're moving, and they're moving, and they're paying large sums of money to the people just to tear their houses down. Now, eventually, you're gonna have a swath of 3 houses, a gas plant, and then more houses. And people aren't gonna wanna live in houses with heavy truck traffic, and that's just how I feel about it.
Thank you, Robert. Would you like to reply to that, Dave?
Well, I haven't seen any homes being torn down on Peckham Road. As a matter of fact, I see, yes, there was Gomes' home. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, that was 3 or 4 years ago. And I know they purchased another home at one point back in time that is gone now. But I also see homes being built right across the street. So what's being taken away is being refilled back in. And the Board of Selectmen's office, Planning Board, to my knowledge, and I'm there, has not received any information that the LNG tank, LNG or Eversource, whoever it is, the LNG farm, is going to be expanded in the near future, or anything. There's nothing on the boards right now.
Robert, you have last response.
I'm good.
Good. We move on to the question, what will you do to change what's happening at Town Hall with all the turnover of personnel? And Dave?
Well, it's a short answer. We hired a new town administrator to handle that.
It's a
Robert?
pretty good answer. I'll give him that. Really, it comes down to putting the right staff in place and having Mr. Jamie actually be there, and he seems like he knows what he's doing, and I look forward to working in the future.
Okay, can all of you here in the back? Yes? Great, thank you. We go on, if cycling is so important, why does Acushnet only pick up twice a month and not every week? Robert?
I'm pretty sure it just comes down to negotiations with the trash company. We have trouble having it picked up every other week as it is now. So that'd be something that we probably have to talk to Waste Management about and find out what we can do about it. I'm sure there's a cost involved, and it probably saved us some money. But as I'm not privy to the contract, I can't speak on that. But really, that's a question for Waste Management and Select Board to find out why.
Dave?
Could you repeat
Of
the question
course,
again, please?
if recycling is so important, why does Acushnet only pick up twice a month and not every week?
Well, the determining factor is the cost. I mean, you know, working and as the selectmen, seeing the budgets, you gotta imagine doubling your cost for recycling. In my home, if you recycle correctly, you know, we get able to make it every 2 weeks. Now, I understand if someone's got 7 people at home, you know, they're gonna need 2 barrels or that sort of thing, and, but it's, the main driver is the cost.
All set?
I just have a quick question. If that's the case, if it costs too much to pick up recycling every week, has anybody done any cost analysis whether we could extend the hours at the town yard rather than just Friday and Saturday? can we weigh the cost on that to find out if people have too much recycling, they can drop it off. That might be a good way to go about it. Like I said, I mean, we can only spend what we have. And if it means putting a couple bucks more towards the school or the council on aging, I'd rather do that than recycling and just hold on to it for an extra week. But I think that's something that I'd like to look into if I have the opportunity to represent you. If we could expand hours at the town yard and we could drop off recycling ourselves, it'd be a big help.
Well, expanding hours at the town yard will incur costs also. You got time and a half for union employees, there gotta be 2 of them there, and, you know, yes, you could weigh out and see what the differences are, but you're still gonna be adding cost to our budget, which, as you know, this year was a tight one to get in. Well, you may not know that, but we had to ask the school to come down $75,000 on their request. So that's how tight we operate on our budget.
Okay. This is for the incumbent. Now, are we allowed, Ray, to just ask one person on? Okay, fine. So, Dave, this is for you. In what ways did you go above and beyond to contribute to the balanced budget achieved 2 weeks ago?
Oh, very good. That's good. Well, being a selectman in this town, you have to realize one thing. I work with 2 other select board members. And there you go. You got 3 people working to create the balanced budget. Sometimes, in our case, Mr. Gaspar picked up on a point that excise tax was being overestimated as revenue, and that could be a problem. So after the discussion with the finance committee, which I attended the meeting, and you know, we were able to come to a conclusion on it. You know, above and beyond, that's not how the Board of Selectmen work. As I've heard from the board members directly, it's not about one person, it's about the 3 of us. The 3 of us working collectively to do the best we can to make this town what it is. So, as I mentioned, I took credit for what I did as SRT representative. Short of that, you go to work, you go to the town hall, you got to work with 3 egos, 3 different personalities, all the time. How do you come to a consensus on that? That's the question. And I believe we worked well together. We worked well together, and that's how we came to a balanced budget, working together.
All right. Would you like to reply, Katie?
No, it was directed to him.
Yes.
I don't work in town hall, so I can't really speak on it.
Given the tight budget restraints and no raises for town employees, will you be willing to forego your salaries? If not, why not?
You gotta, I missed that one, yeah.
Okay,
It says there's no
absolutely.
raises for town?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Given the tight budget restraints and no raises for town employees, will you be willing to forego your salaries? If not, why not?
Well, who says there's no raises for town employees? I've been on the select board for 3 years, and every year there's been a cost of living adjustment of at least 2% for everybody. Right now, we're negotiating with 5 contracts. I gotta believe, it might be 4. We got the teachers, we got the fire, we got the police, we got the AFSCME union, and the DPW. There's 5 contracts. You're telling me none of those people are gonna get raises this year? So that question, I think, is a little misleading to say there's gonna be no raises this year. Town hall employees are expecting 2%, and that's what we've been given over the last few years. And am I gonna give up my $300 a month for being selectman? I'm gonna keep it, because I pay my taxes. I almost pay half my taxes. Next year, I'm gonna be paying more in taxes, because they're gonna go up.
Would you like to,
I just answered the question very basically. The question, the way I listened to it was, if you had to give up your salary to help the town, all I'm saying is, yes, I would. For the stipend pay that selectmen get paid, It would be convenient, it'd be nice. I've talked with my my parents have a very good support system for me, and they help my kids, so I can go to work. And it'd be nice to, invest that stipend to help my daughters go to St. Francis, which one of my daughters does go to, and I could send them both if that was that. But the long and the short of it is I'd much rather see my kids stay in this town for as long as possible, and if a measly stipend pay helped a town employee or a project in town, I would do it. And that's all I was saying.
Do you have anything more to say, Dave?
No.
Okay. Moving along, area towns have gone to 5-member selectmen. What are your thoughts about changing over? And remind me, who did we start with last time?
I kind of
It was David? Okay. Robert?
I think right now, for the size of our town and for what we have to accomplish, I could see it in the future, but I think a 3-member board seems to be working fairly well. I wouldn't be opposed to a 5-member board. I just think that that's more people that can get involved. That's a more chance to have less of a negotiation between everybody. Seeing how they operate, I see it on YouTube or in person. I don't see what happens behind the scenes, so I don't know how it goes well behind closed doors at Town Hall. But I think for what they do, a 3-member board is good right now.
Dave? You want the question again?
You mentioned, do I think we should go to a 5-member board?
Yeah, area towns have gone to 5-member selectmen. What are your thoughts about changing over?
I think we're fine here in Acushnet with a 3-member board. I know Fairhaven just went over to 5 members. They had the election last month. Fairhaven's a different town than Acushnet. So I would have no thoughts of trying to push that along or anything like that at this time.
So, that's good. How would you as a selectman work to control tax increases, whereas more and more residents are living on fixed incomes? And we will definitely start this time with...
Okay. Well, we'd have to stay within our means, is the best way to say it. The first year I became selectman in the town of Acushnet, I went to a seminar, it's kind of Selectmen 101, to learn about taxes and tax levies and everything else. And, here's the realization. Your taxes go up 2.5% every year. That's the levy that's imposed by the town, and it's imposed by every state in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that 2.5% generates about $400,000 to $500,000. The rest of it comes from new growth, excise tax, which gives us about, I'll be conservative here, $800,000. That's what we have to work with every year. That's how we have to balance a budget. Talk about increases in salaries, union negotiations, that sort of thing. We need to be tough and keep them, conservative, because otherwise you're looking at the big O, an override, and nobody wants that. And nobody wants to start cutting services. You don't want me to start laying off a cop or a teacher or anything else, or have recycling once a month instead of twice a month. Because it's very simple. I try to look at it very simply. We have this much more money come in, and we have this much more expenses contractually every year, which leaves us a certain amount of money to provide the services that we have and been used to getting over all the time. So, be fiscally conservative, I guess. Thank you.
Robert?
Can you just repeat that?
Of course.
Make sure I didn't miss anything.
The question is, where did it just go? Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Giving, no, it's not, oh, I apologize.
It's on a big piece.
Let me see.
Just trying to wing it.
What was the basis?
Taxes.
Taxes. How are you gonna keep
So-
taxes on fixed income?
On the fixed incomes, right, right. So I put that underneath here, so I'm gonna have to.
Sorry, I'll give it a go.
Okay. And if I find it, I'll repeat it.
We'd probably look into some state-funded programs to incentivize and give a tax break to the fixed income community, the 55 and older community in this town. I don't, and once again, there's a lot of information that I'm not privy to, but I believe that we have to figure out a way to support the 55 and older community in this town any way we can. Like Mr. DeRoche said, taxes are not gonna go down ever. I've never seen taxes go down in my life. The only thing that goes down is property value, and your assessed value goes down and you pay less in taxes. I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. So we have to get creative. We have to find out a way to work with the people on fixed incomes, find out what their needs are, get them involved in programs that support them, and do what we can for that. Because like he said, I mean, you're kind of at a zero sum at the end of the year with a budget, and you don't want to see the services cut, like Mr. DeRoche said. But you have to find a modern approach to fix the problem and support a fixed income community.
Dave, and I apologize, everyone, I had.
Do I get a rebuttal?
Yes, I'm going to give it, I wanted to
Okay.
repeat for your benefit.
All right.
How would you, as a selectman, work to control tax increases, whereas more and more residents are living on fixed incomes?
One thing that people who are living on fixed income and are income qualified, the town does have tax deferral services for them. A certain amount of percentage of their taxes are deferred. And in the future, when the house is sold, money can be paid back at that time. I know there's a limit on how much can be deferred, but we can help, to some point, control the tax burden on people with fixed incomes. There are things in place.
As long as we let the people know that there's deferment, I'm in agreement. They have to support and show the people that need the help that there is help available. And I think communication is a big part of the breakdown in this town. There's not a lot of open source information. You can go find it, you can go to the town site, and the town site does have all the information, but a lot of people don't know where to look. And as long as they're told about it, and sometimes it's as simple as just announcing it.
Any reply to? Yeah, fine. Town employee retention has been a significant issue. What would you do to retain the talent pool that remains and attract qualified candidates for vacancies? And yes, to you, Bob.
Once again, it all comes down to budget. I mean, it's a very competitive marketplace, and you hate to see any veteran employee leave because you can't pay them what they deserve. So it's a really tough question, because you can't promise stuff like that. You can't promise that you're gonna pay people more when you don't have any money. So what's the grand answer? You have to find a way to make more revenue so you can pay them more, or do you hire younger people at a lesser pay? It's a catch-22, and that's kind of a loaded question, because you can't spend money you don't have. And you gotta find out interesting ways to increase tax revenue or revenue in general without damaging the town and without letting go of quality people and quality employees. And a big part of loyalty is treating them right when they do need something, whether it's not financially, whether it's, help. I watch the DPW guys break their backs, digging holes and filling holes and digging trenches, and, if they need a day off, okay, I know it sounds really tacky, but you gotta at least support them when you can't financially support them. Any means necessary.
You said, how do you retain people when
Yes, what would you do to retain the talent pool that remains and attract qualified candidates for vacancies?
Well, in this case, Mr. Hinckley hit on some true points. How do you retain people? Well, after a certain amount of time, people want their salary increases. I mean, you can give them better conditions. I mean, there was one thing that happened in my 3 terms that I voted against. It was a 2-to-1 vote, which happens sometimes on the select board. We don't all agree. Is that we took away the Friday afternoons off for employees, which kind of affected their morale a little bit, because they worked later on Tuesdays till 7 o'clock, and on Friday afternoons, getting off at noon was a benefit for them. Something that, yeah, you can say, town hall needs to be open from 8 to 4 every day. But in this case, I saw the town employees, their morale hurt a little bit. So there's something that didn't cost us anything, but we took it away from them. And then, how do you retain good employees? Well, you have a good working environment. If employees feel like, they don't want to go to work, they're not going to go to work, they're going to start looking around. And right now, Acushnet has always been very conservative in paying their employees. So an employee who's not very happy working here, for whatever reason, easily looks at the MMA book and says, hey, there's an accountant job over in Rochester, paying $8,000 more, or wherever it may be. So it's tough to keep employees, but I believe morale is a big issue, and to keep employees in place. And right now we have an accounting that we're advertising for a certain amount of money, and we've gotten no applications for the job because we're $20,000, $30,000 less than the nearest competitor. So why would someone come to Acushnet and work for us? Right now we're doing a Band-Aid on the problem by hiring a consulting firm to come in a couple days a week. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Rebuttal? This one is for Mr. DeRoche. Having been a selectman for the past 3 years, can you explain to the taxpayers your 3 biggest accomplishments?
Well, I did mention that being a select board member is a collaborative effort. It is a collaborative effort. And in my statement today, I mentioned that the senior work program is being funded with $20,000, and that's something I worked with the new town administrator over the last 3 months with. I told them about the program that was approved at town meeting maybe in the early 2000s, but it was never funded. So how could it happen? And in my first 3 years, I ran against opposition from the previous town administrators concerning that. But this town administrator, Jamie Kelly, was open about it and said we could do it. And working on the SRTA, I'm the SRTA representative in a town that has no buses. So, I was able to advance a couple of things forward to help the people who needed it. And, also too, I stepped back in the time of COVID. I'm not going to blow my own horn, but if you ask me what I feel that I made accomplishments with, I came here every I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Thursday. We handed out groceries and boxes of food to the residents of Acushnet who couldn't afford it, to help the COA as a volunteer, the EMA, and working with PACE. So those are things that I feel very proud of being a selectman in this town, because I help the people out. These big projects, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, that's a collaborative effort. You work with different departments, planning board, board of health, and the select board, and all those options. So, so I'm very proud. Those are some accomplishments that I did on my own, but collectively, I'm proud of working with my fellow select board members and my other fellow boards in this town of Acushnet. But that one in time.
We have just a few more questions. The town has just hired its 3rd town administrator in 3 years, It is about to hire the third director of finance in 3 years. Why such a turnover? What are your plans to bring consistency to the town?
I think the third town administrator, I think Julie did a good job, but I don't know if she actually really wanted to do the job. I think she did excellent for what she had, but it's a stressful job, and I think finding Mr. Kelly, he seems like he likes it. I mean, I see him on the videos on YouTube, and he seems like he actually enjoys doing the job. It's a matter of making sure he enjoys the job and making sure everybody, like the previous question, making sure that the people in place actually want to be there and are okay with the fact that our budgets are a little lower than neighboring towns. And if they're here, you have an opportunity to keep them here simply by making them enjoy their job, making their job as easy as possible, giving them the tools that they need to do the job correctly. Without that, you're not going to keep retention, and you're going to have turnover after turnover. And you have to make the people in these positions feel comfortable in this position and giving them the tools they need to succeed.
You want me to repeat this?
Please.
The town has just hired its third town administrator in 3 years. It's about to hire the third director of finance in 3 years. Why such a turnover? What are your plans to bring consistency to the town?
Well, the town administrator, Mr. Hinckley, you're exactly right. It is an extremely stressful job. You got 3 select board members with different personalities coming in. He has to work with them first, who are his bosses. Second, he has employees in different town departments that he has to take charge of and be the bosses of them. Different directors, different heads of different departments. So it's extremely stressful. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the 3 town administrators or the 2 previous town administrators. Mr. Nobles was only there 3 months after I got elected, and then he was gone. I got elected in April, and he was gone by August. We had a committee. We chose a person. We went to the first meeting with that person, and that was the end of that because his demands were too great. And his attitude was not conducive to working with us. We hired Julie. Julie was a newbie, inexperienced, took her out of finance, brought her down to the town administrator's position. I believe she didn't get the support that she needed. And upstairs, once we moved Julie out of the finance, we'll see, I was only here, I'm trying to think of who the other finance person was, because it was Julie when I got here. Then we moved Melissa over there. She was very inexperienced. Once again, we didn't go out looking for people who were experienced and pay the money. We paid people lower salaries. We got Julie for $120,000 to start. And Melissa, we gave her a lower salary than what an accountant makes. And there you go, we saw what happened. We didn't get the experience that we needed. So now with Mr. Kelly coming in, hopefully he signs his contract at the next meeting to make it official. But we feel confident. I feel confident in Mr. Kelly. Out of the 3 town administrators, he comes with the most experience, and we're paying him the most money to see what, and we're going to see what he can do. And what else it comes down to? If he doesn't pan out, we can fire him. And, there is in his contract. So, you hire people, you fire people. And that's something that has happened over the 3 years. And that you learn that has to happen sometimes and learns that you have to do sometimes as selectmen. Thank you.
We'll add time if you need it. All right. Last 3 questions. How do you plan on paying to repave the road at South Main Street when it is time to repave it? How do you plan on paying to repave the road at South Main Street when it's time to repave it?
Right now it's under state control, and as I mentioned, there is sometimes there's some miscommunication or misunderstanding out there. The town will not be taking that road over by the state's assumptions for 5 to 7 years, which, I don't know what that means. It could be 7 to 9 or even longer. So if the road's gonna be repaved, it's gonna be repaved by the state, which I don't think they're planning on doing right now. So let's just, as I mentioned before, let's just say we get the road in 6 years, we get a brand new road. I'm assuming that that's gonna last 5 years, so, in 11 years, it'll be a hurdle we have to jump over. But, at this time, the question, there's no immediate need to pave the road. It's not gonna cost us anything. So.
Yeah, as far as I know, the town can't afford to pave South Main Street right now. But we do have state reps, and we can put pressure on them to see if we can get the road paved. Whether it happens now or 6 years from now, either way, the state should pay for that road. Do it now, you gotta put pressure on the state to do it. Wait 6 years, if the town does absorb this, which once again, I'm not a fan of, make the state do it. We all pay enough taxes where we can ask for one of the main streets into our town to be paved by the state.
Anything to add, Dave? Okay, as we move along, how do you plan on charging trucks that already pay registration, highway tax, and overweight permits?
First, I guess it all comes down to, it depends on the trucks. Local businesses, people that operate out of this town shouldn't be paying tipping fees, I don't think. Especially if they're just bringing mulch to their cousin's house down the road or doing a job on the other end of the town. Once again, there's a lot of information that you gotta unwrap here, and the trucks that I would suggest pay tipping fees would be trucks that have giant companies behind them, and they can afford to pay tipping fees. But I don't wanna see, a landscaper working on Lake Street have to pay a tipping fee in this town. I think that's counterproductive, and I think that's a good way to get people to leave your town. So if you're gonna do it, you're gonna focus on the town, the companies that can afford to pay fees like that, because they can afford it.
Can you just run that quickly?
Yes, of
Thank you.
course. How do you plan on charging trucks that already pay registration, highway tax, and overweight permits?
Well, at this time, there's no plan to charge trucks for going over our streets. In the future, if the town took the South Main Street over, could there be a fee from hauling out of PJ Keating? There might be, but at this time, there's no plan on charging any trucks, any fees to go over our town roads.
Robert, anything? All righty. Here's our last question, and it seems to be both a question and a statement. Why does Fairhaven not want to keep the state road? The cost of maintenance will be way too much. Why would we want the expense? And we'll start, David.
I have no information that the town of Fairhaven does not want to keep the state road. Maybe the person who wrote that knows something that I don't. We have just started negotiations with the state about Main Street here in Acushnet. So what is going on in Fairhaven, I'm really unaware of. And I just got to reiterate that we had just scratched the surface. We sent a letter that South Main Street has become a TIP project, which is a transportation project funded by the state. So that's the information that we have in our hands right now, and that they're going ahead with the project because it's a mass state project. But any real details about it, they're informing us so we can get involved in the design of the road. They're asking us, do we want to have any input in the road? And as I mentioned before, you know, I feel if we're gonna have some input into it, it should be in the infrastructure from where our sewer ends all the way to Fairhaven and a new water main too. And if the state wants to, you know, you gotta negotiate it. I'm not gonna start negotiating here in open, but, you know, if that could be negotiated, I think it would be a boon to the town to have that done. Because, you know, as I mentioned, water and sewer is urgently needed in this town if we're gonna try to get any kind of business going whatsoever. And right now, we're extremely limited. We have the downtown area, as I call it, and there's some, you know, they're talking about sewer from Nice Lane to the police station, and then this was also a consideration from Century House to Fairhaven. So if we can, you know, work a deal with the state and get that included in the project, I'm all for it. So, but I have no information about Fairhaven keeping or not keeping the state road. Thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, I'll have to agree, I am not privy to any Fairhaven information or not. But like I said before, if the town has to pay money for it, I don't think it's a good idea right now. So without seeing a cost analysis and a actual breakdown of how much this would cost the town and the taxpayers, I really can't weigh on anything other than my opinion on it, which is if it costs any money whatsoever, right now I don't think the right time is appropriate to actually take the road from the state.
We're all set, thank you.
Did you say we're all set?
I said I'm all set. We still have our closing statement, right?
Yes, we do. But before we get to them, did you enjoy the information, the clear communication tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Each and every person who spoke tonight is worthy. So let's have our closing statements. And we started with the incumbent, and we'll do the same.
Very good.
I'll keep it pretty short and sweet.
Not yet, Mr. Not yet. That was good. I'll make this short. In closing, I would like to appeal to the 4,500 or so registered voters of Acushnet who do not exercise their right to vote in our local election. I believe the true measure of any democracy, large or small, is participation. Tonight, you've had a chance to hear my views and what course I believe our town needs to take over the next 3 years. I challenge all the voters of Acushnet to let their voices be heard. As my first term comes to an end, I look forward to the prospect of my second term beginning. Therefore, I respectfully ask for your vote come Saturday, May 14th. Thank you.
Dave Giroux.
It's definitely my turn now.
Right. Yes, it is.
First off, I'd like to thank the Lions Club for sponsoring this. We haven't had it in a while, simply we had COVID, and truthfully, the amount of people turning up to elections really didn't call for it. So it's nice to have you guys be on board and support the town. Heather at the COA, very, very thankful for letting us use the space. I want to thank Pam for being so supportive, helping me get my information, and everybody else here. I want to thank you guys for coming out, showing interest in town. Anybody that I've met over the course of the last month, you've all been gracious. Even if you don't want to see me in your yard, I appreciate that. I've got a lot to learn. I'm not going to say I know everything about this town, but what I do is I work hard. I don't stop. And if there's a mission to get done, I'm going to do it. And last, I just want to say thank you to my 7-year-old daughter back there that thought politics was interesting enough to stay up past her bedtime. Thank you all.
Thank you, all of you did a fantastic job. All of you, each of you. And let me just end with a couple of words. I love what the Lions Club has been doing. Continue. I hope the blessings continue to give you strength. I also want you to know that there's a very special place in my heart for the farmers. To you, you have my blessings And anytime you need anything on the radio, you call me, all right? I'm on your side. Thank you. Thank you, Ray St. Pierre, for keeping me in line. And to the candidates, the residents, Mike Chopper once again. And from my heart, thank you. See you on the radio, yes?